I'm going to call the meeting to order. We are going to be doing voice and hand vote this evening, so bear with us, please. First item is to call the meeting to order and announce that a quorum is present, and we do have a quorum. The second item is the approval of the minutes for July 1st, 2025. Commissioners? Thank you.
Oh my goodness, what would we do without technology?
Second.
So I'm
Second by
motion
Aram.
to approve.
All in favor? Hands
Aye.
work.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries, what are we, 7, 8, 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 0. I'll count us all again. This is throwing us all off. Next item of business are regular hearings. The first is a regular hearing, consideration of 2 alternative standards associated with public improvements and landscape standards for Broken Halos Haven on approximately 0.18 acres, legally described as Lot 6, Block 10, Keeley Edition, zoned Old Town Mixed Use 2, Old Town MU2, located at 334 East Walter Street, as requested by Brittany Youngblood McAdams on behalf of Leaf Knudsen and Natalie Reed Knudsen, Capital LLC, the property owners. Case number 25-05-9, alt standards.
Good evening, Commissioners. Lily Sutton, planner. This case and subject property is located at 334 East Walters, also at the southeast corners of Walters and Henrietta. The applicant is requesting 2 alternative standards and is intending to build a commercial amusement indoor facility on the property. They are currently going through the engineering site plan and platting process. In order to get those approved, they need these 2 alternative standards. The first one being related to the public improvements for both right-of-ways, so along Henrietta and Walters. The applicant is requesting that in lieu of escrowing the funds to allow dedicating the right-of-way and having the builder build the 6-foot sidewalks themselves during the construction of this property. The second alternative standard is to allow the trees that are to be planted in the right-of-way to be planted outside of tree grates, which are usually required. The applicant ensures that there is enough space within the landscape strip to allow for the trees without the grates. When the city decides and is able to widen both Henrietta and Walters, they are able to decide if tree grates are then needed and install them then. And with that, I will open up to any questions that y'all might have.
Questions, Commissioners?
No question.
If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the 2 alternative standards as presented.
Motion by
Second.
Rick,
Second.
second by Ainsley. We may vote now.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
The next item of business is a tabled regular hearing. Consideration of 3 alternative standards on I-35E Corridor Overlay District, standards associated with secondary walkways, loading areas, and building orientation on 26.84 acres located on the north side of Valley Ridge Boulevard, approximately 1,000 feet west of the intersection of Valley Ridge Boulevard and North Mill Street, legally described as Valley Ridge Business Park East, Block B, lots 3, 4, and 6, zoned light industrial district, as requested by Iris Harajan of Kimley Horn on behalf of the owners, Constellation REP. 25-03-4 alternate standards.
Good evening, Commissioners. This item is a continuation of the alternative standards from the last meeting for the Constellation Industrial Site. As a reminder, Constellation is requesting 3 alternative standards, these being to readjust the orientation of Building 1 to reduce the secondary walkway widths and to waive the screening wall requirement for the loading space area. The original recommendation on the staff memo for tonight was to continue to table this item, as the reason for last time was that we were missing a letter of support from the families and board members of the adjacent cemetery for the screening wall requirement. However, we are amending our recommendation tonight to for the commissioners to recommend approval of the building orientation and secondary standard or secondary walkway with standards, as these do not require a letter of approval from the adjacent cemetery, and staff is in support of these. Additionally, by recommending support of these now, it helps the applicant with showing continued process and helps them secure project funding for this site. As for the screening wall requirement, we are still waiting on the letter of support from the board. I've been in continued contact and preliminary conversations with them. They do sound tentatively in support, but we do still want that documentation. So for the screening wall requirement, we would like to continue to table to the next meeting, and we'll hopefully have something for you then. I'm here if you guys have any additional questions, and I believe a representative of the project is also here.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions?
I have a question. Since the last meeting, I had a chance to recognize where it is, and I went out there. Coming out of the Ford dealership onto Valley Ridge is an unsignalized. Is there going to be any impact, or has that been assessed? It's already kind of a tricky intersection.
Sorry, I missed that last bit of what you were saying.
It's already a kind of a tricky intersection coming out of that Ford dealership.
Yes. Are you?
Right there, yes, ma'am.
Right here. To my knowledge, I don't know, but if I didn't foresee any impact here.
Excellent.
The access to this site will be farther east on Valley Ridge Drive. So they will have, I believe it's 2 driveways or 3 driveways that access the property. And it will mostly be going out towards 35. But no, we didn't, I don't think we assessed that intersection specifically.
Thank you, just a curiosity.
Thank you.
Further questions?
Is it normal for us to wait on approving based on the, I guess, based on the cemetery's support? Is that something that we normally would do?
Yeah, we've required letters of support for screenings or anything else that has like visual impacts on sites before. I think additionally with this site being a sensitive site in Lewisville, it's a historically Black cemetery. I think just making sure that we are, everything squared away with that is important for this site.
Okay, because I didn't know if it had some kind of impact on the business from moving forward with it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the main impact, I believe, when we discussed internally, we would only likely table this item one more time if there wasn't a letter of support for this upcoming P&Z, then staff would recommend disapproval for the screening requirement. But yeah, as far as like tabling it into ad nauseum or anything like that.
I don't want it to go, we're now in 2026. And
yeah.
The committees or the cemetery board has not approved it. So I would hate to do that to the business who has done their due diligence. So, okay.
Thank you. Further questions?
Does the motion need to be separated? Like we're only, like how does that need to be worded?
You could make one motion to recommend approval of variances, and I forget if it's A and B.
A and C.
A and C, and
as
table
presented,
variance B.
And table variance B.
Mhm.
Okay. So,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
so I'll make the motion to approve variances A and C as presented and table B pending letter of approval from Cemetery Board.
Motion by Aram,
Second.
second by Jack. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Next are our public hearings. First is a public hearing, consideration of a special use permit for an automobile repair minor facility on approximately .61 acres, legally described as the Thomas Addition, Lot 1, Block A, located at 500 South Keeley Avenue and zoned light industrial district, as requested by Ezekiel Kaufman Mobile Tire LLC, the property owner. Case number 25-06-9 SUP.
Good evening again. This subject property is located on South Keeley Avenue. The applicant is requesting a special use permit for minor automotive repair. This business offers off-site tire repair service, so similar to like a Safe Light, where they come to the customer wherever they are on the road. There is a stipulation within this SUP that no customer vehicles nor repair will be done on site or outside. No changes to the landscape, parking, or any other exterior element are proposed. It is an existing building. The applicant has already reinstalled a fence. It was a chain link fence. It is now wrought iron, I believe, or steel tubular fencing. While staff, there is several single-family residences to the east, west, and north. Usually staff would not find this to be a compatible use with single-family, but given that it is an existing site and this use is much less intensive, or this type of use is much less intensive than what we would usually see with minor automotive repair, staff does recommend recommendation of approval for the SUP. And with that, I would like to answer any questions, and I believe the applicant is here as well.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions before I open the public hearing? If not, I will open the public hearing. Anyone who wishes to speak, please come forward, state your name and address, please, and we'll be happy to hear from you. If there is no discussion from the commissioners, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, I'll accept a motion, please.
Motion to approve the special use permit as presented.
Second.
Motion by Rick, second by, was that,
We need to put in the following conditions.
there were conditions.
I can then make the motion because I have the conditions written down here.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of the special use permit with the following conditions: that the vehicle in need of repairs will need to be stored or repaired outdoors on site. 2, that all repair activities will take place off-site, and no outside storage shall be allowed on the site.
Thank you, Francesca. The amended as there, I'm waiting for a second.
Second.
Second by Joshua. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 7-0 with conditions. Number 5, the public hearing, consideration of a zone change from agricultural open space district to light industrial district on approximately 3.027 acres of land out of the Edmund Aday Survey Abstract Number 11, located at 421 Bennett Lane as requested by James Yu, Lovett Industrial LLC, on behalf of Eduardo and Ana Ortuno, the property owners. Case number 25-04-9, zoning.
So this request tonight is to rezone the property from agriculture open space to light industrial. The applicant intends to build a speculative warehouse facility on the property. Several of the surrounding uses are light industrial or light industrial zoning with light industrial uses as well, and similar uses. This is the first step within that process. Because they are within 500 feet of a residential zoning district, they will be required to get a special use permit, as well as meet all of the other supplemental standards that were recently approved for warehouse and manufacturing. And in addition, this is within the transition sub-district of the I-35 corridor overlay, so they will be subject to those standards as well. Because it's because it's in an area that's majority occupied with industrial uses, and this area being designated as an employment center in the 2025 vision plan, staff does recommend approval of the request. And with that, I will answer any questions, and the applicant is here as well.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Has the surrounding neighborhood, they may not know what a sign is, or it feels like proactive contact with them to let them know of what the plans are for this property would be beneficial. I don't know if that's occurred or...
Absolutely, that's a great question. We did send out notifications to all surrounding property owners, a standard with public hearings, but a sign was posted as well. So the immediately adjacent properties have been notified via the mail.
And we haven't heard back from anybody on that?
As of today, there has been no written or verbal correspondence that I've had with anybody in support or not in support.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Excellent question.
I think we have an audience member.
Yep, I have to open the public hearing first.
May I speak?
No other, I have to open the public hearing first, sir. No other questions from the commissioners. I will open the public hearing, and I will be happy to hear from the person who would like to speak first. Your name and address, please.
James Yu with Lovett Industrial, 3811 Turtle Creek Boulevard, Suite 1050, Dallas, Texas 75219. So Ms. Stelling, addressing the question of have we reached out to neighbors, when we first engaged in the project, I actually sent letters to each of the homeowners along Pine Street that are within 200 feet of our property. And I provided them a site plan as well as potential renderings. And so I did receive one phone call from one of the neighbors addressing a traffic concern from the existing mobile home park to the north. And so we've been working with staff. We've done a traffic impact analysis to help address those concerns. And I think that's part of why with the advertising that the city has done, we have not heard any additional comments because we've been able to address some of their concerns.
Okay, and there'll be, because there's extra screening and stuff that'll be required against the residential side too, correct? There are enhanced standards, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
So with the supplemental standards, it's larger buffers for building lines and then landscaping as well.
Okay. All right, great, thank you.
Commissioners have any questions for Mr. Yu?
What is going to be the nature of this business?
It'll be a Class A industrial building, and so with this size and dimensions of the building, they are typically tenants that serve regional homes or housetops within the area. So it won't be something with high traffic like a Amazon distribution center. So it'll be more like your tiling or plumbing businesses.
Okay.
Further questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else wishing to come forth and speak on the matter, please come forward and address, give us your name and address, please. Having no one else come forward, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, I'll entertain a motion.
I want to make a motion to approve as presented.
Motion by Francesca,
Second.
second by Rick. You may vote now.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Commissioners. The last public hearing is a continued public hearing considering amending Section 2-2-1 definitions to add a definition of short-term rental unit, amending Article 7, uses, parking requirements, supplemental use regulations, and certain distant regulations to amend the heading of Article 7 to uses, parking requirements, supplemental use regulations, and certain distance and density regulations, and the heading of Chapter 7.4 to certain distance and density regulations to add a new section 7.4.3 establishing distance and density location regulations for short-term rental units, and to repeal and delete section 7-2.1.5 interim prohibition on short-term rental of dwelling units. Take a drink.
Good evening, Commissioners. So we have, at a staff level, been working on short-term rentals really for almost 2 years now. And so one of the first things that Council did was a interim 1-year prohibition, which was in the UDC, and that's something we're looking at now repealing. It's expired anyway, but just to go ahead and do that cleanup and repeal that. During that 1-year prohibition, our neighborhood services team, including Chris McGinn, who is here tonight, worked very hard to create a permitting process for short-term rentals. The City Council adopted a cap on the number of short-term rentals that was at 130 units for the City of Lewisville, and that's roughly 0.5% of the single-family housing stock in the City of Lewisville. During that initial phase, we really didn't consider multifamily or short-term rentals in multifamily. They hadn't really occurred in Lewisville. We haven't had any permits for them simply because there haven't been any apartment property owners that want their properties to be used in that way. And so we have had a couple instances where tenants were basically trying to rent out their unit as a short-term rental, but that was in violation of their leases, and they were told by the property owner to stop doing that. So we currently have 120, I believe. So I think this tells you there's a combination of 110 combined STR permits and applications. I believe that number is now at 120 based on the latest updates today. So we are getting very close to that cap on short-term rentals. We have done quite a bit of public outreach. We did a Zen City survey that was back in March. We had 602 submissions. We had an open house where we had 20 attendees, and we had a follow-up survey online that had about 29 submissions. So that's kind of the outreach we've done so far. With the Zen City survey, 65 respondents agreed strongly that STRs should be limited to certain zoning districts, that there should be a minimum distance between STRs, that there should be a limit on the percent or number of STRs in an apartment complex, and that Lewisville should set or limit the percent or number of STRs on a street or on a block, so that we're not degrading neighborhood character by having more short-term rentals or a preponderance of short-term rentals, and so that those negative impacts that are sometimes associated with short-term rentals aren't kind of overly burdening one area or neighborhood. So we did have this opportunity at Thrive. We did get people from all over the city that lived here, that owned property here. Some were short-term rental owners, some were neighbors that had issues with short-term rentals, so we had a wide variety, even though there weren't that many attendees. We went ahead and did an open house follow-up survey just to reach out to more people and kind of ask similar questions to what we asked at the open house. And so looking at the open house and those surveys, most people, it was really funny because you can see the divide here between how satisfied people are with the current short-term rental regulations. So 34% disagree or strongly disagree, 34% were neutral, and 31% agreed or strongly agreed. So you can see we really are getting people from all over the spectrum on this. Some of the key results are Should STRs be allowed in multifamily units? 38% disagreed or strongly disagreed, 14% were neutral, and 48% agreed or strongly agreed. Should multifamily STRs count towards the limit? 61% said yes, and 38% said no. We had some really interesting thoughts on block face. I think this was kind of a harder concept to illustrate and to understand. It's also a harder regulation for staff to implement. But looking at the maps, 1 or 2 per block face were the preference. But when we did these kind of buffer distances, it kind of showed more clearly in the neighborhood, and I think that was understood more easily by folks at the open house and on the survey. It's also a little bit easier actually for staff in terms of implementation and monitoring. So we had a wide variety, and I thought it was very interesting. We had quite a bit of split in where the distance should be set at, even showing those numbers. And then we asked if the city should reconsider the 130 permit limit. 48% said it should be lower, but then we also had another 40% saying there should not be a max or it should be higher, and 12% said to leave it as it is. So again, just kind of very split. So we did look at survey cities. 2 other cities use a maximum distance and a maximum per block or block face, San Marcos and Bourne. None of the Lewisvilles included linear distance and block face density requirements together. Looking at cities that limit STRs in multifamily, Austin has a 3% limit, Rockwall has a 5% limit, San Antonio and Euless have a 12.5% limit. In our survey cities, Dallas and Grapevine have 3%, Plano has 5%, Denton has 10%. You kind of see how that lays out. So our proposed updates to the Unified Development Code are to remove the interim prohibition language, to add the definition from short-term rentals, to add density requirements. I do want to say that if these density requirements are adopted, any STR that has an active permit would be grandfathered and they'd be allowed to continue operating without meeting those distance requirements. It's only at such time as they stop operating that they would no longer be able to get a permit, but they could continue to renew their permit as a legal non-conforming use. And so what the density that we're proposing is a 1,000-foot minimum. We're proposing a multifamily limitation of 3% of units, or 2, whichever is greater, as the maximum, because we do have some very small apartment complexes that might have only, say, 16 units. So we are working now, hopefully, on a new schedule. So if there's a recommendation by the Planning and Zoning tonight, we are anticipating this going to City Council on August 18th. So apologies for that out-of-date schedule there. But staff is here to answer any questions that you had. We did put draft language in the backup to review so that you could see what that was when you're making your recommendation tonight.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions?
I have thoughts.
Go ahead.
This is my time for my final thoughts? Okay. So the city's done considerable outreach and hearings on this subject over the last couple of years. Y'all did a lot of work this last spring, and it showed a lot of participants support some kind of density or regulation. At least 10 other cities were pointed out to have some version of a density requirement and have had them for many years. I think Euless was adopted in like 2018. Also, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is the federal circuit over North Texas, specifically mentioned density regulations not once, but twice in their court ruling from case 21.30643 back in 2022. So there's also been mentioned by staff that they are seeing trends of STRs co-locating in single-family neighborhoods. I personally witnessed this.
Co-located?
Congregating into various areas,
Like
becoming more dense. Yes, concentrating. I witnessed this in my own neighborhood in 2023. We have 20 houses and we had 3 short-term rentals. That's 15% of my neighborhood. We are just 2 streets. Today, 2 have permits and the other one has become a long-term rental. We have no HOA. In our proximity to the lake and Lake Park, which is soon to be rebranded as the Lake District, there's nothing that protects my neighborhood from being overrun, and a 500-foot buffer would still allow us a third. Thus, the 1,000 feet is preferable. So I don't feel any neighborhood can be 15% or greater of short-term rentals, Airbnbs, VRBOs, and still be able to maintain its neighborhood character and attract long-term residents. So thus I support this.
So I have a question. So when we talk about the survey results, it looks like, again, we're split kind of down the middle against public opinion on, 50% want 550 feet or less, 50% want 550 feet or more. That's how I read the data. So can you tell me a little bit more why the city's recommending 1,000 feet buffer zone? Because when I think about densification in Lewisville, the Old Town District, the new developments, the single-family urban developments, the zero-lot properties that we're building, very, very different than traditional West Lewisville suburban homes. So what is the reason we're not taking that into consideration when we're looking at a blanket 1,000 buffer zone?
Yeah, no, and I think that's an excellent question. So we have been looking at it as a distance requirement. I think when we did the math on how many STRs would in theory be allowed with this 1,000-foot buffer, it was close to, Chris, do you remember that number?
This is 1,000 feet.
Yeah. So if we did the 1,000-foot buffer, in theory, that would allow up to 841 short-term rentals. If we did the 500-foot buffer, that would allow, in theory, up to 3,249 short-term rentals. And there's a lot of specifics of geography and location that weren't included in that. That was a very theoretical number, but that just kind of gives you an idea of what the scale difference is. Now, we do still have the total cap. But what we've also found is actually in recent call data, since we've been registering STRs, we've actually seen the calls for service for nuisance type calls increase. And so we want to make sure that we're not burdening any singular neighborhood with a high density of those calls for service and the negative impacts that are associated with short-term rentals. And so that's why we went with the 1,000-foot number. So it was a combination of the survey results and then also the open house and the follow-up survey. And the chart that I showed you just included the follow-up survey from the open house in the open house. So there was the 602 respondents that were in the previous survey. And then we've also had conversations with the city council as well.
Thank you.
Michelle, did you say that since these regulations have gone in place, more nuisance calls have been received?
Yeah, so we have more short-term rentals that we're aware of because we have permits now for them, and so we know where they are. So when we were able to give an updated address list to kind of run a report to see where the calls for service are coming from, we did find quite a lot more calls for service. And it could very well be related to we just have better data now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Do you think those nuisance calls are part of just being summer or seasonal, or is it just coming?
At this point, Chris McGinn, Neighborhood and Inspection Services, at this point we haven't dug very deep into PD's data for calls for service. We just know that there's an increase and they're basically calls in relation to noise disturbance, something of that nature. Not necessarily a violation issued, but just a call for response.
Well, these are all police calls that you're talking about.
Correct.
You know, I know we do these surveys, we reach out, you try to get as many people as you can to respond. This is a big city, 100,000 plus people here. You just don't get a lot of people paying attention until they have this in their neighborhood. And I think that the 1,000-foot is more than fair, honestly. I mean, because you're going to have, people just don't pay attention until it, moves in next door to them.
Until it impacts them, not in my backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing I would say is I think especially in an area like Old Town, we anticipated when we began this process that we would likely see more short-term rentals closer to the Old Town area and closer to the lake. And we didn't necessarily see that. There wasn't like a driving trend either for Old Town or for the lake, or where you would think people would be wanting to go to recreate. They were kind of very well dispersed. But we do want to kind of keep an eye on that, because there might be some valid reasons for allowing more in certain areas at some point in time if they're operating well. But this is again, our first year of permitting. And so those first permits are coming up on their first year here in August.
So where are we seeing the most concentration of, like, in multifamily?
So we don't currently have any in multifamily, again, because current multifamily property owners are not permitting that right now in Lewisville, but we do see that in our surrounding communities where entire complexes have sometimes gone to short-term rental, and at which point it's like, is this a hotel now? What's happening?
Yeah.
And so we wanted to kind of get ahead of that with the multifamily cap of 3% per unit. So that was getting ahead of it, but there's a couple of specific neighborhoods, I think, that are newer construction, townhomes in particular, where we're seeing a number of short-term rentals pop up.
Remind me, Michelle, are we keeping the cap overall on total number of short-term rentals in the current language? I'm looking for it.
So with this UDC amendment, it does not change the cap. But we are considering raising the cap slightly, and I do mean just very slightly, to about 150 units, which would allow a little bit of apartment units and some other units to come in. I think this is something that we're going to continue to monitor and possibly adjust as time goes on and if it's warranted. But again, when we initially adopted that cap, it was based on total single family without any thought at all to multifamily happening. And now that we know that that's a thing and it probably will come at some point, we want to make sure that we're kind of getting ahead of that as well.
And what's the current cap?
The current cap is 130 units, and the proposed increase would just be an additional 20 units.
Remind me, Michelle, is there, with the new registration permitting, there's a cost, right? Do they have to pay to register their short-term
I'm sure there's a
rentals?
registration fee. I'm not sure how much it is, but they do also have to report their hot tax so that we can make sure that that's being assessed.
Yeah, the current registration fee is $400 a year, and that includes the cost of the inspection.
And is that pretty much on par with neighboring municipalities?
Yeah, so that's in line with what our survey cities are charging that require a permit.
Is it hard to terminate a permit? I mean, if you go out and do an inspection and see that they're in violation, is it a long, drawn-out process to get somebody to get a permit revoked?
No, so basically we are able to take a look at the data, see that they're advertising. Most of the owners have come forward and gone through the application process. If not, then we reach out to the owner of the property and request that they go through the application process. We've had a few instances where we've had to go down the enforcement path, but the majority of those that are advertising have gone through the permitting process. I think we were at a 93 or 94% compliance rating.
Okay. But you haven't pulled a permit from an existing STR?
You haven't revoked.
Correct. There hasn't been a situation where we've had to revoke a short-term rental permit.
So can you remind me, hot taxes can't be used for the general budget. They can only be used for tourism, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I think that's an important point as well, so.
Further questions before I open the public hearing? Thank you. With that, I will open the public hearing. If you wish to speak, please come forward with your name and address, please, and we'll be happy to hear from you.
Hello, my name is Catherine Paris. I live in Bridges of Oak Bend, which is 195 East Round Grove, apartment 2433 in Lewisville. I don't have much to say, but I would just ask that with short-term rentals that we try to keeping in mind like the affordability of Lewisville and the effect that short-term rentals can have on rents and home prices. That was really just my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Glad you've spoken to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Robert Otnashek, address is 2061 Camelot. I'm a short-term rental owner, and several things that I've heard that are interesting to me. The fact that we're already at 130 in such a large city with so many houses is already a pretty big stipulation that already limits it pretty substantially. I disagree with the overrun comment. These short-term rentals, the people that are doing the rental are quality people like you and I. They're spending good money on these houses. A lot of them, most of them are wanting privacy, or they'd be in a hotel. So these aren't just party houses. In my knowledge, in the last 5 years at this property, there's been 2 minor issues with neighbors. So it's not like, literally I've had 2 different renters in the last month that are working all day and come back for the evening. So these are not party houses that are filled with people that are messing up the neighborhood, and it's not a bane for the city. It's actually really good revenue for the city. And again, I just want to point out that these are quality people. We've already limited this to 130. That's a pretty small number. And I know for myself and a lot of people that I know, being able to stay in a nice house in any city we go to is much preferred over going to a hotel or anything like that. That is the primary place that a lot of people want to stay. They want to have that space to themselves. So I just want to share another perspective with that I think even the phrasing of this is a little off from my experience and for what I know for it. Appreciate the ability to have a house here and appreciate the city. It's been great to work with, and I just wanted to provide a few comments.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, just a quick question.
Yes, sir.
So, what do you think you think the number should be higher? That 130 number should be higher, the cap should be higher? Is that what?
I don't think there's any issue with having that higher. I think it sounds to me like, so for instance, one of the things that was brought up is other cities that have enacted the 1,000-foot minimum or whatever standard they use for that. The question would be for those cities, how many STRs do they allow already? So that would be important in weighing those numbers. That was something that was not brought up. I don't know if we know that information. But I think the 1,000-foot minimum, again, like they've said before, the odds that apartment complexes and so on will even allow that are so minimal. I think it sounds to me like there's a lot of spinning of the wheels here. I understand that there's an effort made to try to limit future stuff, and if we increase the number of rentals, but I think I don't think with 130 rentals in this big of a city that you're going to have an issue with density of STRs in neighborhoods. It's not going to be normal that neighborhoods have more than 1 or 2, especially if you look at the whole city. It's a very minor number out of the number of houses here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
My name is Jeff Woods. I live at 1001 Forest Park Drive in Lewisville. Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for letting me opportunity to speak tonight. I do stand in full support of the proposed amendments to the Unified Development Code concerning short-term rentals. I appreciate the work of staff in thoughtfully drafting regulations that recognize the delicate balance between individual property rights and neighborhood integrity. I myself do live in one of these densely areas that tends to be a lure for short-term rentals in my neighborhood because I do back up to the Lake Park area and the new development that's going to be there. The proposed standards requiring 1,000-foot separation between STRs in single-family homes and duplexes, along with limiting STR density in multifamily developments, are critical steps toward preserving the character of our residential neighborhoods. These provisions help prevent the over-concentration of STRs, which we know can lead to negative impacts on housing stability, neighborhood cohesion, and public safety. Something that bothers me that was not mentioned in tonight's presentation was the language that is listed in tonight's meeting agenda staff memo analysis, which states all existing STRs with permits or permits in progress that are within 1,000 feet of other STRs would be considered legal non-conforming per Article 5 nonconformities of the UDC. They would be allowed to maintain and renew their permits. This is the part of the language that bothers me. It says new buyers would be allowed to use those properties as STRs as well, which was not mentioned tonight. So I want to strongly express my concern regarding the idea of allowing STR permits to be transferred, which is really what it is if you read between the lines, to new owners. While the proposed text indicates that existing permitted STRs will be treated as legal non-conforming uses, I believe allowing that what is realistically the automatic transfer of STR privileges to new buyers contradicts both the spirit and the letter of the city's current permitting framework. The city's established standards have consistently recognized that STR permits are not property rights, but operational privileges tied to responsible ownership and ongoing compliance. Permits are intended to be non-transferable, a principle that protects neighborhoods by ensuring that each permit holder is vetted, accountable, and responsive to city oversight. Permitting this type of transferability undermines the safeguard and creates a de facto permanent entitlement to the use of that property as an STR, even after a change in ownership or operation. That risks turning STRs into speculative investment vehicles, further fueling housing affordability and challenges fueling housing affordability challenges and neighborhood disruption. I respectfully urge the Commission to consider aligning the ordinance language with existing city standards, clearly stating that STR permits may not be transferred to new owners. Doing so will protect the integrity of our neighborhoods, uphold fairness in the permitting process, maintain consistency with city code. In summary, I commend the Commission for advancing thoughtful, balanced regulations on STR separation and density. I fully support the proposed distance and density limitations. However, I strongly oppose any provision that allows for the continuation of STR use to what is seemingly a permit transfer upon sale or change of ownership. Let's make sure our regulations work not only for today, but for the long-term health and stability of our community. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to come forward and speak? If no one else wishes to come forward, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners?
I have a question. So when the cap is reached, Michelle, do the people go into a waiting list or what happens?
Chris can probably more detail give you an answer to that, but yes, essentially there is a waiting list. And then should a permit expire, be revoked, someone choose not to renew, then the next person on the waiting list could move up.
We'll keep track as that person, goes through the process. If it's at that cap, then that would be the first person we'd contact if there's an opening.
Thank you.
One last question. So the continuation of a permit passing from an existing owner to, like Jeff said, to a new owner. In the past meetings where we've had this discussion, if memory serves me correctly, there was going to be some cleaning up of the language so it matches between Unified Development Code and what we're doing here, correct?
So that's our standard nonconformities language from our Unified Development Code, which is intended to address any use that was lawfully existing at the time that it started operating. So everybody that has a permit today is lawfully existing, right? So when they come to have their permit expire, if they're already within 1,000 feet of each other, well, who doesn't get the permit, right? So the nonconformities protects against that. And the nonconformity says that existing uses can be continued to be used until they change to a conforming use, if it goes back to being a standard single family or a long-term rental, or until they stop using it as a short-term rental for 6 months, or if they do anything that merits the revoking of the permit at some point in time.
So it's basically a rolling of the dice. Say someone puts their property up for sale, if the new buyer comes in, what they're wanting to do with it. If they explicitly state, and I'm just, again, my real estate, because obviously I'm a realtor and I'm thinking about the 1 to 4 family contract on existing homes. It's like paragraph 8 or something. One of the outs a buyer has is that they can, if they formally put language in there of like a restricted use or a deed restriction or something, they can ask for time to do their due diligence to find out, hey, this is what I'm specifically wanting to do with this property, be it run a daycare or run it as a STR or something, and I find out that I can back out of the contract. So if someone comes in, a new buyer, and specifically states in that paragraph, like this sale between the two principals, that this is what I'm wanting to do, they could potentially, they could do it because the existing home is right now.
They would apply for a permit in their name, yeah. And we would still keep the cap.
But it would still be subject to the cap, okay. Excellent. I mean, it's like a fine line or dance. I mean, I'm very conflicted on this whole topic because at the one hand, I do very strongly believe in property rights and owners' rights, and I'm a landlord myself. You guys all know that I have multiple rentals of my own across different cities. None of them are short-term. They're all long-term because that's just a business model that works personally for me in my investment strategy. But I do very careful about telling someone else what they can and can't do for their retirement or their, and we've met so many people up here who are conscientious owners and runners of STRs, and it works well for them. But then at the same time, I'm tasked with being a P&Z commissioner and just being as involved as we are, you know, in other endeavors with the city of keeping the peace for everybody. Like, my right as a landlord or business owner shouldn't impede on someone else's right for peace and, you know, coming home and not having to deal with the party house as their next door neighbor. So I just feel like my heart goes out to everybody involved. I just don't know that we're ever going to be able to make everybody happy. And I just want both sides of the aisle to know that we take this very seriously, and we're just trying to find that happy balance to keep the integrity of our neighborhoods and also let the good people of this city make their money and live their lives. I mean, I just don't know what else we can do.
I'm with Erin. I feel like we are walking a tightrope here, and I believe what's being presented, though, strikes a fair balance. It addresses the community concerns while still allowing responsible short-term rental operations in Lewisville. So that's my stance on that.
I agree with you, and I also know that our city is also responsive enough that should we see in the future change needing to be made, that will come. So I feel like I'm on the fence like Aram is with someone being able to buy a property and continue with the licensing. But I think we've got to we have to start somewhere. And this is our start.
I mean, just for comment, I'm still struggling with 1,000 feet, and I'm still struggling with that low cap. All of Lewisville is not the same. We have different areas, different neighbors, new developments coming in, 0 lot lines, and I'm just really struggling with that. When we talk about our 2025 plan and our 2035 plan, we want to be a destination. Short-term rentals, they're part of a destination. And if we limit that too much, I'm hearing concerns each and every meeting that we're taking a very, very conservative approach with these numbers, and I'm not sure that really reflects the middle line of the data that's been presented to me.
I mean, like, speaking on that, as long as we're having the discussion, like, I've had 3 kids in college in 3 different cities. 2 of them were in very, very college towns, Lubbock and Austin. Pretty much everything in Lubbock revolves around Texas Tech, and a good portion of Austin revolves around UT Austin. And so when it comes time for move-in for my boys, an Airbnb always made sense because we needed a garage where you can just bring your car in and close it and not have to unload the Chevy Tahoe with all of their college paraphernalia. Because if you go to a hotel, especially in Lubbock, you don't even leave a cup of coffee in there because you know your car's getting broken into. And so I would either have to time move-ins to where we're driving 5.5 hours from Dallas, hitting the dorm or the apartment, just unloading everything, and then going back to a hotel and sleeping, coming back the next day, unpack and whatever. And Airbnb just made so much more sense. But then, like, I'm thinking, okay, Lewisville is not really a college town per se, where a high number of Airbnbs, you know, around summer move-in and end of the year, December graduations would make sense more like, say, Richardson, where UTD is, or around SMU, that area. But our closest, like, big university, UNT, I mean, that's like, what, 18 minutes up, 35. So, like, just, and the reason where my train of thought is going with this is, like Josh said, it's, especially with Castle Hills annexed in, Lewisville is so big. And you're thinking about different neighborhoods have different characters and different needs. Someone traveling on a family reunion, say at the Gaylord, would want an Airbnb close to Grapevine, so that would probably be like my part of Lewisville. But once the Lake District gets developed and hopefully we really become a premier destination for that, then I see your concern with your neighborhood. I mean, I don't.
Well, I
just don't know that.
I think what you don't know what the right number is.
Exactly. That's
right. So I think what's going to happen is you'll come back 6 months from now, and if that waiting list has 100 names on it, well, maybe the number needs to be moved. If you come back and there's 3 names on it, then that kind of sets the bar of how popular those things are here. How many people are wanting to have those properties here in this city? So I think it's a weight game now. I mean, put a number out there. They've worked hard to come up with this number, and let's see what happens. Let's see how many people actually, you know.
I mean, Chris, are we treating this like an evolving ordinance? Like, that's a very, very valid point that Rick made. So if we get to the point where we have this waiting list and we see that the people who live and own here are asking for more, is that a target that that percentage, that cap can be changed or looked at? Like,
I will say the ordinance has been evolving as we've gone through this on Chris's side. It's evolved. This is our first time putting it in the UDC. That cap, just to be clear, is not in the UDC, so that's not in the text that y'all are looking at tonight. That will be in Chapter 4 of the Code of Ordinances and not the Unified Development Code. So really what we're looking at tonight in terms of numbers is the 1,000-foot distance requirement and the 3% of units in multifamily.
I also want to point on to kind of a conservative side of this is once you open Pandora's box. You can't put all the little pieces back in because everything is now legally non-conforming. So it makes sense to start here and then amend it if necessary.
Yeah.
Arlington they're only allowed Airbnbs in their entertainment district.
Yeah.
And that's what their residents wanted. So one of the options was doing variations in different districts. There's a whole wide world ahead of us going forward. But I think we need to start somewhere, and I think this is a good place to start.
Here we go. I'll entertain a motion.
I ask that the Planning and Zoning recommend approval of the ordinance proposed as outlined in the caption above.
Motion by Ainsley,
Second.
second by Jack. You may vote now.
Aye.
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 Dissent.
Motion carries 6-1.
Thank you, Commissioners. We anticipate this item going to City Council at their August 18th meeting for a second and final public hearing. And I did neglect to mention on the previous public hearing that we anticipate that going to City Council at their August 4th meeting.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. I couldn't hear anything other than saying it was 6-1. We're not hearing what you're talking about, what the situation is. But there's a lot of questions that's going on. And I also live in Old Town here. Well, that's close because I couldn't hear any of that. Gustavo is talking.
So Chris can explain to them. I know we've already closed the public hearing, but Chris can go explain what just happened and what was under consideration a little bit more. I think there was an issue with understanding and hearing what was happening.
Do I need to reopen?
We've already voted.
We've already closed.
We've already voted. Yeah.
Already closed.
We just move on.
We have already voted, so it is,
You've already voted on the item, yeah.
so, excellent. And I'm glad he's gone out to speak with them. Receive an update on the implementation of long-range plans.
Give me just one moment to pull this up. So I'm trying to do these twice a year for everybody. I don't have too many updates, and it does always change the formatting whenever I pull it this way, so I'll remember to PDF it next time. With the Old Town North small area plan, we haven't had too many additional accomplishments other than there has been further progress with the Fox Hembry Cemetery, which was the cemetery we were talking about in regards to the alternative standards. Road improvements were made, and there's other improvements scheduled with our community development block grant, and our neighborhood services is working with them to further those projects. And then we've also made quite a bit of progress with the Wayne Frady Park and upgrades to Wayne Frady Park. The lighting plan was approved, or was received, and so that's being incorporated into a kind of park refresh for Wayne Frady Park. So that's an exciting project as well. One of the items in the plan was to kind of enhance the entry from the north, and so we're adding lighting along that entry from the north as it's very shaded and very dark at night. We are still needing to work on the creative mix area on Cowan Street, the community garden, the branding campaign to update our thoroughfare plan and street designs. We did do some of that with the UDC, but there's some areas in Old Town where even those don't work with the right-of-ways that we have. And also design and construct Prairie Creek Trail, and then look at a design district on the north side of College in relation to Old Town, which we're looking at as well with our Old Town master plan update that's ongoing. In Southwest Lewisville, we are making progress. We have some bids on the monument sign. We do have the interlocal with TxDOT, and we're working through with our sign contractor bidders to get that project moving. The Valley Parkway Business Park is under construction, and they will be building trails along with that business park. So that's exciting to see. And then some of the items that we're still working on is still the Gaswell site reclamation policy or plan, incentives for upgrades along FM 3040, establishing stronger business associations, considering a design overlay, and then continued investment in the Creekside community. We've continued to invest in that community. Our Play Lewisville on Wheels does deployments there. They've also looked at doing swim, what do they call it? I forget exactly what they call it, but they do swim lessons since they do have a pool there, so they go there and teach swim lessons. The big thing that we've been working on this past 6 months is the Business 121 corridor plan, since that was just recently adopted. We have received funds for TxDOT for critical lighting enhancements. We've applied for a transportation alternatives grant for just over $5 million to do sidewalk and intersection improvements for pedestrians. We've also received a grant for Mill Street to do a complete street, going Mill Street from where we stopped with the previous complete street all the way down to Business 121 to make that connection from Business 121 into Old Town. And then our code enforcement team has begun quarterly sweeps of the corridor. They actually found a number of issues with their first sweep, and so we've been coordinating on addressing all of those issues. And we've established a staff team that meets monthly for tracking and implementation purposes. Some of the things that are ongoing is we're working on a pop-up event in September and corresponding with Parking Day. We are evaluating a sculpture that we'd like to place along Business 121 near Mill Street that would actually go on a parcel of land that's owned by Denton County. That's still in the evaluation phase, but that fits in with adding art along the corridor. We're looking at getting the corridor zoned more appropriately. There's some higher intensity zoning districts that we would like to be lower intensity commercial zoning districts. And so one of the items we've put forward in our budget this year is to remove fees for those zoning requests that are in conformance with what the plan calls for in that corridor plan. We've done the same thing in Old Town for a long time, and we found it to be successful because what staff can then do is when any kind of permit comes in, we can ask them to go ahead and rezone. There's really no cost to them, so sometimes people will just go ahead and do that. And then we're also working, NCT-COG has some Safe Streets for All funding, and they're looking at doing a safety assessment along a portion of Business 121, so we're excited for that resource to be incorporated as well. We do still need to look at updating our UDC standards. Addressing access management was a large priority of the plan. That's a very difficult one to do because it does involve coordinating a lot of private property owners. Adopting a Vision Zero policy, which if you're not familiar with that, that's a vision for zero traffic fatalities, and then working to have policies and designs to move towards zero traffic fatalities, understanding that humans are prone to error, so how can we set up systems and spaces that are safer? Adopting some sort of mural program to enhance murals outside the Old Town area, and then considering foot patrols and other ways to kind of enforce the area and make it safer for people traveling. So that is my very quick update on plan implementation, but I'm happy to answer any questions if you all have any.
Questions?
No questions.
Thank you. And for an announcement, I want to thank Patty for trying to get us up. You tried. Any other announcements? Thank you. In that case, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Aram and Francesca. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
That's a strong.